Heidi ho, my crafty friends. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. So today, I thought I would take you on my journey of making a paper bag journal for my friend Patti. Now, my friend Patti is in my gardening club, and she is a sweet, sweet, sweet lady, and she is busy, busy, busy. So, and she is a champion for all things living on this earth. And if you can recycle it, reuse it, and not buy it if it's plastic, Patty's the one that will tell you about it. So I figured Patti would be the perfect girl for a junk journal. Now, I don't even know if Patti knows that I make junk journals. So this is going to be a surprise for her. And she is not a member of my channel. So she will not even know about this until I give it to her. Which is exactly the way I like it. So what I'm doing is I'm opening up the bag down here on the bottom. And this is just it was a grocery bag from a local grocery store. So I'm opening it up down here at the bottom. So now I just have a great big tube. And I want to take off these handles, see, on the inside here. And I have learned my lesson about leaving them. I do not like to leave them. I left them on a smaller one. And I did not like the feel of them. They get really stiff. So I'm going to very carefully take them off. I try not to tear the bag. And I'm just peeling them with my hand. Now, I am going to cover this bag with this fabric. And that will give it a little more support. Now, I could probably just leave it as a paper bag, and Patti would be thrilled. Because she'd be able to see the paper bag. And I know you can't see what I'm doing inside here, but here are the two handles. And I will keep these because I like to use this part here. I like that part. Okay, so now I have a great big tube. And I'm going to look here. Oh, there's my receipt. How about that? Okay. So now I'm going to look here, and I'm looking to see where the seam is. There it is, right there. And it doesn't really matter where the seam is. It doesn't really matter at all. Because I'm going to cut it. So I'm laying this flat. Now, there are a buku bazillion videos out there in YouTube land of how to create a paper bag journal. There are buku bazillions. And I know you can't see my whole thing here. I'm trying to show you everything. I'm using a different setup for this table. And I might have to use my original setup to give you a better view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my metal ruler and I'm going to cut just a thin length off of one edge to open this up to give me one big piece. Now, I probably don't have to do that because I want to double it anyhow, but I don't need all of this. I don't want it, 4 times because that's just going to be too thick. So, because if I do it this way, that's really thick. That's really thick. I only need half of it, though. So, I want to cut it in half. And my ruler is not big enough. So let's see here. What's going to be the best way to do this? I have an idea. I'm going to fold it this way. And I'm going to put my edges together. Now, I want to find half. Now, I'm not going to pinch it or anything. I just want to find half. And I'm just going to pinch my corner to find my halfway spot. And then I'm going to put my ruler down. There we go. That'll work. Okay, so now I have half going this way. Good heavens, how many receipts were in there? Okay, so now I have half. Okay, now I have half. So now, I don't have to worry about, cutting these edges off or anything, but I can glue on the inside of this, but I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to be doing some sewing with my fabric. But I do want to make sure that my edges are down. So I'm just using my ruler. Sorry if the noise is freaking you out. Okay. Okay, good. So now let's see here. Oh, my signatures. I already got my signatures made up. So let's see what we need to do for size-wise. All right, here. So let's move my paper clips up to the top so they're not, or even the bottom would be fine, so that they're not interfering with my spine. And I want to put these in here. See, it's way too wide. So I'm going to move it out here. So I can see where I need to cut it. Okay, so I want to show you here. I've scooted it out, and that's even too far. I want to give it the normal, 1/4 to 1/2 inch on the edge. So let's get all these scooted together. So let's scoot them down to the bottom. Right about there. Now this will just be very lightly decorated because this is being made for her to write in, to put a calendar in. So I'll just be putting pockets, things like that in it. So she can put, notes and things like that in it as she goes about her day. And and I don't want to fill it with too many things, but I will decorate the pages, and I will show you the signatures. Okay, so I think that's going to be the edge, but I will double check it. Okay, so get in there. So there's the edges. Okay, that's good. So I think they can come down a little bit, maybe. Actually, they need to come up a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to cut this off that I don't need for the length. So I'm going to cut this off right here at my fold. Now, let's go for the length. Let's see what we need to do for the length. Okay, here, let me sit down and do this. And it doesn't matter that I'm looking at them upside down. I guess it does because I need to fold it over here. Okay, so I want to give the same amount on the inside, or at the top, that I have at the bottom. So at the bottom I have about 1/4 of an inch. So at the top, come here. At the top, I want 1/4 of an inch. And I forgot my pencil. Let me grab my pencil here. Okay. Okay. So let's connect my little lines here. Okay, so as you can see, I'm not straight, so I do need to straighten it up. So this will give me a straight top. Now, you don't have to have a straight top. You can use like your pinking shears. You can use all kinds of decorative scissors if you want. And you don't have to cover this with fabric. You can leave it, you know, the look of your paper bag, and decorate the paper bag if you want. All right, so the bottom needs straightened up. This needs straightened up. So I'm just going to put my ruler right here where those little notches are. Just take off those little notches. Okay, so now I'm hopefully straight. All right, so now I need to cut my fabric for the inside and the outside, and then I'm going to sew it. So I've got my big cutting mat out here. So I'm going to pause the video for a second, and I'm going to get my fabric cut so you don't have to see me struggle with these big cuts of fabric. And then I will be right back to show you the fabric that I have. So I will be right back. Okay, so I have my fabric cut, actually torn, to go on here. This is going to be the inside. It's going to go there. And this is going to be the outside. And it goes this way. As you can tell, they're actually a little bit bigger than what I need. And I'm going to sew them in place. Yeah, it goes like that. Okay. I'm going to sew them in place. But before I sew them in place, I'm going to take a little piece of a glue stick and I'm going to run it just right in the middle to kind of hold it where I want it. Let me show you what I mean. to keep it from wiggling as I put it under the sewing machine. So right there's my middle. And I'm just running just a smidge. I mean, all I did was a smidge. And that'll keep it from wiggling around. Okay, right there. Now, if you don't have a sewing machine, you don't have to sew it. You can take and you can glue it if you choose. And I have glued many journals with fabric. You can find them in the playlist. Okay. Now, it looks crooked. I know it does. And that's okay. That was why I did it that way, so that I can trim it after I've sewed it. And I can still see my edges, which is what I wanted to see, so that I can sew my edges straight, and then when I'm finished, I can take the edges off, and it'll be straight, okay? So, there's that. Now, here's what that's going to look like with our signatures in. So it's going to look like this with our signatures in it. Oops. With our signatures all sewn in. Now, I am going to sew it through to the outside. And I'm just going to keep it simple for her. I think I might sew a pocket here while I'm sewing. So I might actually go on and take this off and sew a pocket here. I think I might do that. I might sew these separate. So let's take this off. So I think I'm going to sew the inside first, so I can sew a pocket here, maybe a pocket here. So let's make sure this is straight. Okay, so I think I want to sew in here. I want to sew a pocket here and a pocket here for her. That way she can put things in it. And then I'll sew the front on. Okay, so I think I'll sew that first. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. And I'll put pockets. And I'll put the fabric that's on the front on the inside. So let's grab this fabric. So here's the fabric. And let's cut us a piece. Or maybe, let's see if we can tear a piece to give us. Do I have a scrap piece here? I don't think I do. No. So let's tear us some. Nothing better than a piece of torn fabric. So let me tear some. Okay. And let's see if we can get some pockets on here. Okay, so there's the fold. And I don't mind if they're a little bit bigger because they'll get sewn in here. And that will be okay. Where's my seam? Right there it is. So I need to cut it right there. And there. Okay, so there's this pocket. Let's take those off. Okay, so I want this to be a little scraggly baggly up there. Now, where's my actual... Okay, so it needs to come up here. Okay, this isn't going to work here. Let's lay this here so I can see where this needs to go. This is going to need to go there. All right, let's grab some pins here so I can pin it down. Okay, here. Now, let's grab some straight pins here and pin this little stinker down that keeps wiggling around. Here they are. Okay. Right about there, I think. You know what, actually, I'm changing my mind on this, you guys. I am changing my mind. I want this to go like this. I really like that. And this fabric, I think, is non-directional. I think. No, it isn't. This is the bottom. So I want this at the bottom. Like that. I want that there. Okay. Oh, that's going to be a little bit too big, I think. I think we're going to have to cut this over here, out of the way of the spine. Okay, where's my spine? Right there. Okay. So now my other one that I want over here. Now, in theory, it should be the same size. But because the signatures are going to be in there, see, as you can tell, once the signatures are in there, see how it comes into your pocket in this soft journal? It comes into your pocket. It impedes. So this pocket is going to have to be a little bit smaller than what I thought. Okay. Okay, that one's better than this one. This one is going to have to be shorter. Okay. Okay, so that's where they're going to go. Whoops. All right, that's where they're going to sit. Okay, let's get this. That's the cover. Okay. All right, so now I'm thinking on the cover, I might want to bring a piece of this and wrap it around the spine to kind of break all of this pink up. I think this might be what I want to do. Since we broke it up on the inside, I think I want to break it up on the outside. Now, one thing I do want to do is I want to add a bookmark, you know, a piece of ribbon, you know, something like that. And I have ribbon that looks like, it looks like leaves that I'm going to use for that. And I will show you that when I'm ready for that. So let me get this sewed really quick. And let's get this down here. Yeah, that's going to work perfect. So let's get that glue stick up out of the way. Just make sure these pins are closed so they don't end up on the floor. Okay, now I'm going to pause you one more time, and I am going to pick the sewing machine up, and I'm going to sew this real quick, and then I will be right back. So hold on just a second. Okay, my fabric is sewn on, and now I am going to trim through here to trim off the excess. As you can tell, it's not straight. Doesn't matter. But I'm keeping these strips that I'm cutting off because I'm probably going to use them for tabs or, you know, something like that. You know, maybe not in this journal, but another journal. Now, I still have the side of this pocket to do here real quick. Now, if you don't like the noise of a sewing machine, turn your phone down right now, just for a minute. Turn it down. Just turn it down, and I will tell you when you can turn it back up, because this is just going to take a second. So turn it down. So if you see my scissors, turn it down. Okay, so the sewing is done on the inside. Okay, sewing is done on the inside. Now, I didn't sew around the top, but that's because I'm going to put something across the top to reinforce that fabric. Now, if you wanted, now this is an if you wanted, you could take your sewing machine and you could sew right down your seam. Now, as you can tell, I didn't sew through these for all of them. I sewed, let's see, this one is sewed on the main seam, and then this one is sewn right through here, you know, so the seams are hidden except for that one. This one I sewed on over here before I sewed the back on, because I wasn't sure how this bag would handle all this stitching through it, and I didn't want it to tear. So if you want, you can go on and sew your signatures in now and have those hidden, you know, like a hidden spine if you want. But I don't want to do that. So I'm going to scoot my machine back here out of the way. Now for the front, here's my cover. Now let me make sure you guys can see me and see how much time we have here. Okay, we're just at 30 minutes. Okay, good. So for the front of this, I want this to go on. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sew it on, but I want to take a piece of that green and I want to sew it down the center. But what I'm afraid is going to happen is if I sew it, I'm not going to get it in the right spot. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to fray one of these edges, and I'm going to go on and cut off the edge I don't need. So I'm going to line this up. And what I could do is sew around this, you know, ahead of time and then glue it down. That's what I did on my other one. I sewed around it ahead of time and then I just glued it down. And I might do that with this because then I could get my spine where I wanted it. Do I want to do that? Let me make sure I'm going the right way. I think I might do that. I think I might sew around this. And then, yeah, I think I might do that. And then, because then I can trim off my edges. Okay, so let me lay this down here where it needs to go. So let's get this down here. I'm just going to put it right here in the middle. Now, let me grab my straight pins and let's pin this down in the middle. Let's just pin it down. So it's not wiggling around. Okay. See, I don't have it up to where it needs to be. And this, sorry, I had a pin in my mouth. This down here that shows, I want that to show because I want her to know what this journal is made of. That will just tickle her to death. She'll be fascinated by this journal, you guys. Okay, so this is not straight. And because the outside of this has a distinct pattern on it, I need to make sure it's straight. Or those dragonflies are going to look kind of wumpadoodled, aren't they? So we need to make sure it's straight. Okay, so let's fold this. And let's make sure it's straight. Okay, so here's my cover. Now let me line it up on the board here. Yeah, they're straight. Okay. I think it doesn't look straight because my seam wasn't straight right there. Yeah, it was a little difficult to see that paper bag. I should have sewed it from the other side. That would have probably been easier. Okay, I'm going to have to lay this way. There we go. That's better. Okay. Now, I do believe I cut this crooked the first time. Okay, it's crooked now. Okay, it's going to have to be trimmed down there. Okay, where's the signatures at? Okay, we can trim some of this excess at the bottom. Or we can move it at the bottom and trim my crooked at the top and then redo the top. Which I think I would rather do that. Because I'm straighter at the bottom than I am at the top. I'm very crooked at the top. Actually, my seam is very crooked at the top. My bag is straight, but my seam is very crooked. My seam is extremely crooked. And I've lost my pencil. Okay, how did that get so big? Okay, I need to trim above my seam. Yeah, see, that seam is not straight. So let's see. Let's make this seam straight so I can trim that one. Okay, so let's do that. All right, here comes the sewing machine. So get ready to turn your volume down if you need to turn your volume down. because I need to straighten this up before we can move on. All right, let's take this pink off. Before we can glue on the pink, we need to straighten up this seam. Okay, you are supposed to be 1/4 of an inch down. You're supposed to be right there. Okay. If you see my knife, keep your volume down. You ready? Set, go. Okay. Okay, now we're ready to trim. Much better. Okay. Much better. Okay, now we can add the outside. So let's get the outside measured here. Yes, the fabric is not straight. That was the problem. So let's turn this fabric over. Okay, and I'm going to glue on the outside fabric. So get our pins up here. And let me pull my sleeves up. Make sure our knife is down. And I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac. And I'm going to use one section at a time to get this down. So I'm going to, and I'm not going to glue here because that's where everything's going to get sewn in. So I'm going to start across the top and I'm going to come down. And I'm just going to use probably my fingers to, spread everything that needs spread. And I'm not going to be afraid to, and I am actually going to turn my fan on a little bit because this is going to get a little smelly. But it's also going to make it dry a little bit faster. Okay, so I'm going to spread it out. Now, if I miss something on the edges, I can come back and, squirt it in. Okay. Now, by spreading out your Fabri-Tac, that keeps it from bleeding through so much. Okay. And then I'm just working my way down. And I'm staying off of my spine here. Okay, and again, my fingers are just spreading it out. Now, if you have on fingernail polish, this will take your fingernail polish off. So just be aware of that. Okay. Now, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Before I do this side, let's see, where do I want to add my bookmark? I want to add that on the inside, so I would do that on the inside. Now I'm making sure that I go across those threads. Okay, now I won't be sewing my signatures in today because I want this to glue down really well, and I want it to dry. Because if I try to push through my signatures right now, it's gonna pull the this off of everything, and this just needs to dry. Okay, so I'm just gonna let this dry for several hours, maybe overnight. Come on. And then when I'm ready to sew in those signatures, it'll be dried down on this paper. Now, you know, Fabri-Tac dries pretty quick, but this is a lot of fabric that's going down, and I don't want to pull it up as I'm sewing those signatures in, because then that's a mess. Okay, here's this piece down. I want it to stay where I've put it. Okay, here we go. There's going to be our cover. So it's going to go like this. It's going to have 3 signatures in it. And of course, this will be trimmed across the top. There we go. And across here, and yeah, and across the back, it's all going to get trimmed up. I'm not worried about its, you know, messy pants right now. It's all going to get trimmed up. And then coming down behind the signatures is going to be the bookmark. And I will have that before we sew in the signatures. That will get put in there. And, oh, my pocket's crooked. Darn it. And then it'll have these 2 pockets and then the 3 signatures sewn in the next time we get together. Well, this is really handmade. Golly gee. I just realized my pocket's crooked. Well, holy cow. And like I said, this is going to be straightened. The top will be straightened up. And the signatures will be very lightly decorated. And across the top of the pockets will go some of the green ribbon to kind of reinforce this fabric so that it doesn't stretch out as much. That just looks terrible. So that one might have to come off, and I might have to put something else there because that just looks horrible. Put something else there. But inside the signatures will go some pockets I have a couple of flips in them, and I will show them to you. But the pages will be just a little decorated for. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today as we create this journal and all the havoc that it has created. I have never had such a chaos in trying to put together a journal. My gracious, I think my brain is somewhere else today. But we got through it, didn't we? We got through it. So, in our next video, we'll continue from here, and we'll get it done. We'll get it done for my friend Patti. We will definitely get it done for her. And until I see you again in our next Ladybug Journal video, ta-ta for now.